After effort softens, responsibility lightens, care becomes simpler, time loses pressure, and interference fades, something unexpected often appears. Rest. Not rest as collapse, not rest as recovery, but rest as a condition that no longer feels earned. And this is where confusion can arise, because most people don't realize how tightly rest has been linked to relief. This episode is about what happens when rest no longer functions as an escape from strain, because the strain is no longer there. For most of life, rest is conditional. You rest because you are tired. You rest because you are overwhelmed. You rest because you've pushed hard enough to deserve a break. Rest is framed as relief, a pause from effort, a recovery from stress, a reward after endurance. So when the center loosens and effort becomes cleaner, people notice something strange. They are still resting, but the rest feels different, less dramatic, less necessary, less relieving. And that can feel unsettling. People sometimes worry, why doesn't rest feel as satisfying anymore? Why doesn't it feel like relief? Why do I feel okay even without resting properly? They assume something is missing. But what's missing is not rest. It is the tension rest was compensating for. Relief is not rest. Relief is the removal of pressure. When pressure fades, relief loses its function. Rest remains, but it is no longer contrasted against strain. This changes how it is experienced. With a center, rest often carries emotional weight. Guilt may appear. You should be doing something. You haven't earned this yet. You're falling behind. Or rest becomes indulgent, an escape, a collapse, a numbing out. All of this is tied to effort being held internally. Without a center, effort no longer accumulates in the same way. Action happens. Action ends. And when action ends, rest appears naturally. There is no drama, no collapse, no reward, just pause. This can feel anticlimactic at first. People expect rest to feel like a payoff. But without ongoing strain, there is nothing to pay off. So rest becomes quieter, more neutral, less noticeable. Rest without relief does not feel like stopping. It feels like absence of pushing. This is an important distinction. Rest is not an activity. It is what remains when interference and strain are gone. People often misinterpret this as boredom. They say, nothing feels especially relaxing anymore. I don't feel the need to crash. I don't feel done. But this is not boredom. It is baseline ease, which feels unfamiliar when life has been lived against pressure. Another misunderstanding appears here. People worry they are becoming disengaged, that without craving relief, something is wrong. But craving relief is not a sign of engagement. It is a sign of overload. When overload fades, craving fades with it. Rest without relief also changes how sleep is experienced. With a center, sleep is often seen as escape, a shutting down, a relief from mental noise. Without a center, sleep becomes simpler. The body rests when it needs to. Sleep happens. Waking happens. There is less emotional charge around either. This does not mean sleep quality worsens. Often it improves, because sleep is no longer used to compensate for constant mental strain. The same applies to breaks. With a center, breaks are often strategic, timed, earned, optimized. Without a center, breaks occur naturally. Attention shifts, energy pauses, then activity resumes. There is less need to label it as rest. This also changes how people relate to leisure. Leisure used to serve relief, a way to escape pressure, to distract from effort. Without pressure, leisure loses urgency. It becomes optional. Enjoyment still happens, but it is not needed to counterbalance stress. People sometimes worry that pleasure is fading, but pleasure is not relief. Pleasure arises from engagement, not from escape. When engagement is clean, pleasure remains. What fades is the desperate hunger for it. Rest without relief also alters how people respond to fatigue. Fatigue still occurs. The body still has limits. But fatigue is noticed earlier, responded to sooner, without guilt. This prevents burnout. With a center, people often push past fatigue. They override signals, then require dramatic rest to recover. Without a center, fatigue is just information. When it appears, response happens. Rest occurs before collapse. This makes rest smaller, more frequent, and less charged, which can feel strange if you're used to rest as recovery from excess. Another place this shift becomes clear is emotional rest. With a center, emotions accumulate. They are processed, revisited, analyzed, Rest is needed from emotional labor. Without a center, emotions move through more cleanly. They arise. They resolve. There is less emotional residue. So there is less need to rest from emotion. This does not make someone emotionally flat. It makes emotion less exhausting. A subtle shift also happens around stillness. With a center, stillness can feel like stagnation, like wasted time. Without a center, stillness is simply absence of movement. It does not require justification. It is not meaningful. It is not meaningless. It is neutral. This neutrality can feel unfamiliar. People expect stillness to feel peaceful or profound. But without contrast, stillness is just stillness, which is exactly how it functions naturally. Another misunderstanding appears when people try to recreate relief. They attempt to rest harder, to force relaxation, to seek something soothing. This reintroduces pressure. Relief cannot be manufactured when nothing needs relief. A common trap here is thinking something must be wrong because rest doesn't feel dramatic. But drama belongs to strain, not to rest. Rest without relief also changes how people relate to productivity cycles. There is less oscillation, less extreme pushing followed by extreme collapse. Life becomes steadier. Energy fluctuates naturally rather than violently. This steadiness can feel less exciting, but it is far more sustainable. Another subtle effect is that rest no longer marks an ending. With a center, rest often signals completion. You stop because something is finished. Without a center, rest does not need to signal anything. It is just pause within continuity. Life does not need punctuation. This also affects how people relate to weekends, vacations, and downtime. These no longer carry the weight of escape. They are still enjoyed, but they are not needed to survive the rest of life. A concern sometimes arises here. If I don't need rest as relief, am I doing too little? But effort is still present. Action still occurs. The difference is that effort no longer accumulates. So rest no longer has to reset anything. This is not loss. It is balance. Another trap at this stage is trying to maintain ease. People notice the absence of strain and try to protect it. They avoid effort. They avoid challenge. This creates a new kind of tension. Ease does not need protection. It is what remains when resistance is gone. The simplest orientation here is this. Let action happen when it happens. Let rest happen when it happens. Don't turn either into a project. If rest feels ordinary now, that is not dullness. If relief feels unnecessary, that is not numbness. It is the absence of chronic strain. Life has not become passive. It has become less interrupted. Rest without relief is not a special state. It is what rest always was before effort became personal. There is nothing to sustain here, nothing to recreate, nothing to hold on to. When the body rests, it rests. When action resumes, it resumes. No commentary required. In the next episode, we'll look at something that ties all of this together. Not rest, not action, but life moving through you without needing to be managed. Because this is where people stop asking whether something is missing and start noticing what has always been here.